Thank you very, very much to Marwan. I've got the great, great pleasure now to introduce our next speaker, Claire Hooper. Claire lives and works in London. She is the 2010 winner of the Baudouin's Art Prize at Art Basel and has participated in many exhibitions, recently Time Machine and Anywhere Door in the Art Park in Taipei. Claire presented the UK premiere of her prize-winning film Nix at the Serpentine Cinema this summer. Shot on location across Berlin's modernist U-Bahn network, the film examines the ancient Greek concept of the night to interrogate the semiotic relationship between sleep, death, hallucination, and oblivion. Following on from a 2008 film, Nach Spandau, a nocturnal architectural lament on the U7 line, Nix uses the same location as a set to represent the underground domain of Nyx, the goddess of the night, and made us also think of Italo Calvino's Invisible City. Claire will present here the genealogy of Nyx. A very warm welcome to Claire Hooper.
Okay. So, as Hans-Ulrich just said, I made this film Nix earlier this year. The U7 line, which was designed by Rainer Rummler during the Cold War, was built to transport people from the residential southeast of the city to the industrial northwest, avoiding the wall and avoiding the ghost stations and the military control which passing into the east side would entail. The story of Nix, the film, is about a youth from Kreuzberg who's kind of stoned or drunk, and he sleeps on the train. As he's unconsciously travelling on the train, he's also travelling into the realm of the goddess of the night, Nyx. And he meets with various children of the goddess of the night who appear to him somehow ambiguously as tough girls, gangs of Turkish youth, druggy party kids, and so on. I choose to situate the film Nyx on the U7 because it takes the shape underground. It takes a shape underground which is parallel to that of the Spree on the west side of the wall. And for me, this underground shadow river was like the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness or oblivion that runs through the underworld in Greek mythology. And the Lethe is the granddaughter of the goddess of the night. So Nyx, according to Hesiod, was one of the protogenoi who came directly out of primordial chaos, a first-generation goddess. Her siblings were Eros, the will to live, Tartarus, the bowels or the womb of the earth, Erebus, the darkness, and Gaia, the earth mother, the fertile surface of the world. It's possible to get a geographical picture of the classical world in terms of the children of Gaia. Her various mountains and rivers and trees are individually named and in many cases can be cross-referenced in literature against actual places, often still retaining the same name now as they did at the time of Hesiod. Gaia's children chart a kind of map in narrative in that the river nymph X is the sister of mountains A and B, and her mother is the spring Y. 100 armed and 50-headed hecatoncheires, which came from Gaia and Uranus, the sky, were the commonly agreed cause of violent November storms in Greece, producing thunder, lightning, and tearing gales. And so the genealogy of Gaia, her titans and giants, form a mixture of geology, geography, and meteorology. With Nyx, the night, there is a similar system, but where Gaia's children represent the matter of the physical world mapped out in the narration of the lineage of the children of her children. The children of Nyx represent human experience, and where we look to Gaia for direction in the land, animating rock formations, tributary rivers, inlets and bays with the soap opera logic of familial relations. In Nyx, the soap opera takes place internally, and the map is of an invisible world. Unlike Gaia, who partners herself with half of her own family to keep creating, Nyx's offspring are largely from parthenogenesis. She made them alone. the exceptions being Ether, the bright upper air of the gods, and Hemera, the day, who were fathered by Erebus, the darkness. Saying it simply gives us a feeling of hope. Out of the darkness and the night come the light and the air. This statement also shows us how we feel about the conditions of darkness and night. We read darkness and night metaphorically to mean struggle, confusion, and pain. The air and the light are the sense of spiritual grace that comes from the absence of such struggle and pain. I will live to see another day, implying that death comes in the night. Nyx is represented often with two boys by her side, twin brothers Hypnos and Thanatos, gods of death and sleep respectively. Identical, but the one has the heart of stone and the other is gentle and nourishing. One appears nightly and the other comes just once. Superficially, they are identical in that in sleep one is dead to the world, and in death there is peace. And by his resemblance to his brother, Thanatos is also considered to be a kindly god, for there are, in the genealogy of Nyx, far worse ways to go. Hypnos fell in love with Pasithea. Hypnos, being sleep, fell in love with Pasithea, beautiful younger daughter of Hera, who comes several generations later, by Dionysius, god of wine and wildness. Pasithea, his daughter, is the goddess of hallucination. In Ovid, Hypnos and Pasithea have 1,000 children who are the spirits of dreams, which has an additive semiotic sense to it. Sleep and hallucination make dreams. Of this 1,000, there are 3 special oneroi. Morpheus is the best known, perhaps. He is the personification of people in dreams, a shapeshifter who takes on the forms of people we know in order to deliver oracular messages, some false, some true. He has 2 brothers, Phobitor and Phantasos, one taking the shape of animals and monsters, hence phobias, and the other taking the shape of inanimate objects and architecture, hence fantasy. Hesiod, however, has the oneroi as the children of Nyx directly, making them the siblings of Hypnos, Thanatos, and the rest. This implies that dreams are not dependent on the sleeper per se, but are out there in the night. In ancient Persia, there was a belief that there are 7 dimensions to existence, the first being the day and the second being night. The light and space of day is the full state of cognition in which we're able to perfectly control our movements and thoughts and can therefore deal with the world around us. Our presence is affirmative and affirmed by all around us. But in the night being a secondary dimension to us, we're much less in control. We still exist there, in body and mind, but rather like swimming in a deep lake, there are creatures out there for whom the night is the primary dimension, to whom we are vulnerable. For this reason, Anatolian Kangol dogs are liminal creatures, and they're huge. They're about the size of a man. They can weigh about 120 kilos, apparently. And they're treated very differently to dogs here. There's no such thing as a lapdog in Anatolia. At night, they go to war against the wolves and the bears. In the existing representations of Lysa, who's the Greek goddess of rage, she's wearing a wolf head as a sort of cap. And she's basically the wilderness that stands outside of culture. In Latin, she's called rabies. In Persia, also, there are other beings in the secondary dimension of night that are not to be defined as animals. These creatures are called jinn, from whence we get genie. They are apparitions, but they're not hallucinations, in that they're not unique to the individual that sees them. They're named and can appear repeatedly to different people. They're able to confuse the beholder, trick them, paralyze them, and harm them psychologically, if not physically. One of these is described as a whirling, screaming banshee type of a woman, frightening to see, ugly, mad. When she slaps you, you wake up with a start, heart pounding and sweating, and unable to go back to sleep. Apparently, sleepwalkers are those who see them her the most. For this reason, it's not advised to step outside after dark unless it's strictly necessary. And there are various rituals such as kissing door frames as you leave and reciting a simple incantation which will protect you, or rather keep you in the coherence of the day while you walk out into the night. The night and her husband, the darkness, are a territory here which one breaches at one's peril. Lysa, goddess of rage, and the oneroi, the personifications of dreams, at large in the landscape of the night, as according to Hesiod, are surely jinn. In Greece's fatalistic culture, Nyx's most powerful children are certainly the Moirae, the Fates. Sisters Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos were supposedly the only deities that Zeus feared like everyone else, because there's no going back on the decisions of the Fates. Clotho spins the thread of life, Lachesis measures it, and Atropos is the one with the scissors. Where Thanatos is the event of passing away in one's sleep, Atropos is the one that makes it happen. Lachesis is the one who says when. Moros, another brother, is doom, obviously associated with the Fates. In common parlance, fate and doom can be interchangeable, but the difference is that Moros is epiphanic, in that he is the moment when one sees one's fate and recognizes it as such, possessing it. When the Greeks went to war, they carried images of Moros to show the enemy, like two raised fingers. This change in grammar from the third person snip to the first person my doom, and which takes the form of a mirror which reflects the inner life of an individual. And it's interesting in terms of a figure like Nemesis, who's the first goddess of divine judgment and retribution. Nemesis is a perfect tally of one's wrongs, and she also is someone we encounter in the night, in moments of self-reflection perhaps. She's often represented as travelling with the Erinyes, spirits of punishment for crimes against nature, normally matricide or patricide or incest, who will dole out the punishment as Nemesis judges, and naturally follows, say, somebody like Ate, who is self-inflicted ruin or folly. And she's a granddaughter of Nyx through the lineage of Eris. I thought that there was no figure of guilt in this lexicon, only Momus, who is blame, until last night, when I was with a Greek friend in Kreuzberg, and I was enjoying the revelry of Dionysius with him. Told me, thank you, told me that the Erinyes, commonly known as the Furies, actually represent that the Erinyes actually represent the feelings that one inflicts upon one's own heart when one knows that one has done wrong. I thought I had made up for my bad behaviour towards my friend, but the Erinyes still come to me in the night. Seeing the children of the night as jinn, which is to say that they're more than mere allegory in poetic language, is to say that they can, and they do visit one in the realm of the night. And this is indeed how they're represented in myth, and how we gain an understanding of the function of each word in the narrative of life. To say that old age creeps up on one, that one is overcome with sleep, visited by dreams in the night, is pretty self-explanatory. But the narrative is given the narrative is given a rather beautiful twist with the addition of Philotes, the god of friendship and brotherly love. Philotes is perhaps the character that really intrigued me to start examining the relations between the children of the night. Much as day comes out of the night, unconditional devotion, which is expected of the family unit, is both the saving grace of the saving grace of the night. Philotes must exist at very close proximity to each of the gods in the lineage of Nyx. In particular, I'd like to point out Eris, goddess of strife, who I just skimmed over before because she's pretty complex. Eris produces murder and slaughter, and as such is rightfully a battle goddess. She's also the mother of Ate, who I mentioned before, self-inflicted ruin, a fit of madness that brings it all down on yourself, key to tragedy. Eris produces oaths and lies and hunger. She also represents competition between people, which Hesiod describes in a positive sense as driving people to work, and toil is for this reason also one of her children. But struggle and pain and old age and death and nightmares, none of this would be possible or bearable, and would drive us all to suicide if it were not for Philotes. He's not the will to life. This, as I've said at the start, is primordial eros. But Philotes is the person sitting next to you. He's the person that holds your hand in the dark, and he tells you that it's going to be all right. where Gaia is a kind of ordnance survey of a map. Nyx is a different kind of map. She's like the map of the underground system, the experience of which is bracketed in terms of one's daily activities. One is blind to one's surroundings. One is simply getting there. The points on this map are arbitrarily distributed, bearing little connection to the city above ground. The distances and arrangement of the points on this map are distorted. Nyx is the map of getting there. Thank you.